innocent, and it's up to the state to bring evidence and a jury to decide if that's different.
Essentially convicted in the media. You don't have to read but a few articles to see how negative they are about him. He has a right to have this information withheld, brought out in public, so that people can see it's not this neat little package. So people can start to wonder if Brian's innocent. Your Honor, Brian is innocent.
They call it the August effect. A quiet pull, a heart's compass, finding its gravitation. A promise whispered to the future. Sunrise paints the window pane a hazy gold. A story in my chest that's waiting to unfold. Used to trace the lines of maps I'd never seen. Now the greenest pasture grows from deep within. Letting go of every anchor, every chain, washing off the dust in cool September rain. This is the freedom, wild and new, the future calling, breaking through. A heart's true north, the sky of blue. This is the promise coming true. The road ahead is unwritten, vast and wide. No need to run, no reason left to hide. Every step a choice, every breath my own. On this open field of chances I have sown. This is the freedom, wild and new. The future calling, breaking through. A heart's true north, a sky of blue. This is a prominent true. The August effect, I understand it now. It's the faith you find somehow. The promise coming true for you. The greenest pasture.
Good morning, nesters. We are going to get into the hearing this morning, EWU versus the City of Moscow, Idaho, over court records, body camera. They want it all. They want to see what happened in Moscow, Idaho, and so do we. We're going to get into the courtroom of Judge Megan Marshall, just in a few minutes. But there is so much crazy stuff. The drama this case has brought is unbelievable, and I will never back down from a freaking bully. That is just me. And if you know the process of somebody that is a unprofessional, unhinged, and on YouTube, I'm going to get a little bit of spicy up in here, and you're going to see some sparks fly and some fireballs dropped. And one thing that I know for sure is that there's a logical step when somebody is a bully. When they are a bully, it's just a felony waiting to happen, folks. I've seen this over and over in many court cases that I have been involved in, have watched and observed in court myself, and watching other cases in person, reporting on other cases in person over the years. And I will say for sure that I see people, bullies, real life bullies that are just one step away from a felony. And I guarantee you, there are people who commit felonies online, like scamming and cyber stalking. And believe me, you never want to get a report or knock at your door from the FBI for cyber stalking with a whole list of evidence behind an individual who's made a complaint. And I guarantee you, believe me, I've called a few local district attorneys' offices. I've called a few sheriff's departments, and I've also had people go and knock on doors just to make sure they're okay. You know, harassment will not be tolerated here, folks. Harassing other people on my channel will not be tolerated. And if I know you, I will stick up for you. And what I mean by if I know you, if you're a regular here and people are commenting and stalking your channel and harassing you, boy, I will tell you 100%, I will fight to the death. And that in me was instilled by the US government, folks. Yes, I am a veteran. Yes, I won't be tolerated. Yes, I am actually a protected individual in the eyes of our government. So mess with me and you mess with the entire organization behind me. But I will say this. I made a video yesterday that I'm going to show you right before Judge Megan Marshall goes live. We're going to watch. And we're just waiting for them to actually start the live. And one thing that I know for sure is I made this video yesterday and TikTok, of all people, tried to remove the video. Guys, I can make videos about Brian Koberger all day long as being guilty, and never once a video has been tried to get removed. But let me put it on TikTok, and I think it's because people are pissed off that my videos are gaining traction once again. You bring facts and evidence to the forefront. People start to question. People start to understand. People start to see what's actually happening in front of them. And like I said, I brought a video to the TikTok streets. And this video has been gaining traction slowly after, I believe, somebody reported it. So while we're waiting for Judge Megan Marshall, let's watch this video real quick.
Ooh, this one is pretty good, folks. You thought about it, I thought about it, we thought about it, and here are the answers. Let's watch this short little clip and listen to what Dylan says.
You're doing great.
I appreciate you. You're doing.
I'm scared. It's okay. I won't say anything.
Do you know if the other two girls are upstairs?
Whoa.
Right now, what we got to do is we got to.
I would have asked, do you know if the other two girls are upstairs? Remember, they didn't confiscate these girls' phones. They didn't confiscate anybody's phones that was present that day. They didn't treat them as potential suspects at a crime scene. And they also never ask the hardball questions. Now, I'm not saying that anyone is guilty. Remember, under the court of law in America, we have this wonderful thing called due process. No one is considered guilty, and unless proven by a court of law. Okay? Now, I want to just make a quick legal disclaimer. This content is informational, commentary, and entertainment purposes. All opinions are those of the creator, and they're based publicly available information, interpretation, and speculation. And that's what we do here. We look at crime scene photos. We look at interviews. We look at videos. We look at body cams. We look at court documents. We watch hearings. We pay attention. And you nesters see, also with myself, what others don't get to see. And you get a perspective for somebody that has been in a legal battle, criminal and civil, for years. Years, folks. One day I will share all this with you. But until that day, you have to trust. And if you're going to trust somebody, would you trust somebody with no experience, or would you trust somebody with factual experience? And yes, I can back it up all the way Monday through Sunday and twice on Sunday, maybe even 3 times on Sunday. And this is not legal, medical, or professional advice. Viewers should do their own research, as always, and form their own conclusion. I'm not here trying to nickel and dime anyone on the internet. I have never asked for a donation. Wait, I did, for Dexter, our projector. And you see it every time that us nesters exclusively use it for our book club. That was donated by an individual that is absolutely amazing. Okay. Now, I know many of you on the tube don't have TikTok, but I do share a lot of TikTok with you because you don't want to go get the app. And I get it. I get it. But by watching, you acknowledge the discussions we have are all alleged here, speculative, and subject to disclaimer, minus all truth, facts, and evidence. All right. And I'm going to say this. If I use somebody's videos that they have put out publicly, it is fair use notice. Yes, I have always been transparent. And yes, I have been in touch with someone very close to Brian. I'm not going to say if it's a family member or a friend or a colleague or a church member or an uncle or an aunt or anything like that, because they have asked to remain anonymous. I have vetted, I have verified, I have confirmed that this individual is telling the truth. And I don't align myself with people who are fake, who make fake emails, who make fake documents, or make fake Google Drives. I don't associate myself with them. I don't want your information. I don't need your information. And I'm not monitoring your information. I am here to share the court facts, truth. No one has hired me. No one has asked me to do anything. This is of my own free time and will, and I don't get paid a dime other than watching the videos, hyping and sharing. It's called you get to choose what you want to watch, just like on a streaming service, just like on Netflix. If you want to give them money, go watch them. If you want to give them a dime, go donate to their causes. Here, we're not asking for anything. I'm not even asking for super stickers. If you give out of the kindness of your heart, that is for our mods on Monday and also for my time. I've never asked for a dime of my time in research and videos, and never, ever. Because I know logically I am well and I am loved and I am favored, and I always have been. And I'm going to show you the rest of this clip as we move forward. It is my own clip after all. And here we go. Logically think about what Dylan is saying at this moment.
Process this whole thing. I don't know what I'd be permitted to. That's fine. Right now, okay. Let's go
What?
back. I just want to make sure we're getting everything. So you're sure at about 4 this morning?
Yes, it was 4:10.
You first noticed a guy.
4:10.
Well, I first noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs.
So 4 this morning, went upstairs.
Yeah.
Now, who could have been at the door at 4? She did say 4:10. Who could have been at the door at 4 or 4:10? Was somebody delivering something? Who was delivering what? Who was delivering what at 4:10 in the morning? I wonder.
So way top.
Yes, to her room. With Murphy, the dog.
Okay. And you heard Kaylee scream.
I heard her scream and run.
How do we know it was a DoorDash food? We've never seen the actual receipts. We never got to see a trial. We never got to see this on questioned.
Like, run as fast as she could downstairs. And she
Downstairs.
was here.
Someone's here.
She ran downstairs.
Yes, I can hear. You can hear everything. But
You
she
can
ran
hear
downstairs so
everything.
fast. Murphy barking a lot.
Okay.
And then I heard her going to I think it was the bathroom, and I remember her
Was it somebody else's dog that was barking? She keeps saying she heard the dog barking.
sobbing.
Bathroom.
And I just remember hearing this guy's voice, and I didn't recognize saying, "You're gonna be okay, I'm gonna help you." But it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't in like a night.
So let's get into this little old report from the experts about DNA on Dylan's jacket, on Dylan's blanket, and let's logically think about the amount of blood that was said to be in this report right here. So let's read it. Lab item 19, reference blood card from Dylan Mortensen. Then the ISP 132 pink fleece with red heart blanket. The stain in the left corner is equivalent to 8,833 human cells worth of DNA, which was recovered. The single yada, yada, yada of the DNA was Dylan's. And then it says the stain near the right corner. Yes. Okay. It originally was tested 132.2. And it says that it was later tested, and yes, the blood was DNA of Dylan's. But it says, it doesn't say how much blood. It just says 8,833. So what would that be equivalent to blood? Approximately this much blood, 0.36 ml. Here's a graph right here for you. And here we have Le Jacket. Item 133A, a light green jacket found in the extra room. Obviously, this one right here in the little tote. And this is the jacket that they're referring to. And it was said to be DNA blood from Dylan. But Dylan, how were you bleeding that night? And where were you bleeding? And here is how many DNA cells they said they found that they were able to connect it to Dylan. I wonder. Now, in none of these body cams do I remember any visible markings, any visible coverings, any Band-Aids. No Band-Aids. Where was Dylan bleeding from that she had blood on her jacket, blood on her blanket in this amount? Where was she bleeding from? Makes you wonder. And here is the picture of the jacket in the spare room that was in the closet. How did it get in the closet? I wonder. And does anybody know the exact time that this picture was taken? Because this is key. I heard something today and I thought, what exact time was this picture taken at? Was it in the afternoon? Does anybody remember from any of the interviews of their friends that what time this picture was taken from? If you do, comment below. You know the drill. Leave me your thoughts, your comments, and your questions. And you know what? Be well.
Okay, so that is the video last night that tried to get taken down. So I responded to TikTok. I gave them all the proof. I gave them everything, and they put it back up for me. But obviously, once they do that, it slows down a lot. And if you look, this video about the cups, and especially with EWU lawsuit versus MPD trying to get these body cams and get these documents unredacted, 126K, that video just took off because people are starting to realize. And this one about the actual body cam, the actual blanket, and one also that I shared this information took off to 55K views. That is the algorithm doing what it's meant to do without any interference. And the minute they start interfering and reporting videos, this is what happens. You get lower views. Or they try to take down your videos. And this is what happens. It's normal on the TikTok streets. But what happens over here on YouTube is that you have more freedom. You have more flexibility to share the truth. Because if you go and look at the past videos that I've been making Well, this one's at 34K, and that was one that I did last year about this.
So you mean to tell me, allegedly, Koberger walked into a house, unalives 4 college students in under 7 minutes?
And 7 minutes is the actual documents that I shared in the beginning between the MPD's filings and the Latah County DA filings. I put that together because the time did not add up what they were saying.
Has cleanup done, sits down in a chair to admire his work, allegedly, and then takes the time to then cover up these victims with blankets. Really? This is classic. So classic, because in these documents, in these reports that have come out that I finished like in 2 days and put it together, you've got to be kidding me. And where are the rest of the thousands of reports that are missing in between here? And also the reports that were written a year later, knowing they were going to have to go to court soon. So do tell me where Officer Rosenthal's reports are there, because he was.
All right. So there's our ghost, Officer Rosendahl.
Undercover in a car per another officer in their report. Where are all Rosenthal's reports? Whoever covered those bodies cared enough about these individuals to cover them. Let that sink in from all the stuff that you've heard. Like and follow for more.
And that was a year ago. And yes, I have lost over 30 pounds. So naturally, thank God. Especially with food poisoning twice in the beginning of this year. But you can go through if you are on TikTok, but you don't have to be on TikTok, because guess what? That's the video that it started. Everyone tried to start taking down was Maddie and Kaylee, Maddie and her friend dancing on her birthday with these men who walked by. All right. So if you go back and you start looking at the TikTok or even the YT, we have more freedom of speech on the YT. And clearly, somebody doesn't want the truth out there. But we are searching for the truth. And this is why we come here together and we research the truth. Whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, we are doing God's work. We're doing the Lord's work, right? I firmly believe that. If you are innocent of a crime and you are framed for a crime and you are spending time in jail for a crime that you did not commit, you should have representation, your own choice of representation, as we're waiting for the Honorable Megan Marshall to come on and learn more about what's going to happen in the case with EWU versus the City of Moscow. You know, we're going to get some, hopefully, answers one day. Maybe it might not be today or tomorrow or 10 years from now, but I know that we're going to get some factual evidence. But did you know that EWU actually filed court paperwork to get body cam coverage for the Columbine incident? And guess what happened to that, folks? Let me pull that document that I found, because I wanted to research what EWU and what other cases have they won in regards to getting ready for this live stream on EWU. And I found the case that they searched for Columbine. They wanted all those documents. And there was a process there involved that didn't yield favorable for them. Just like the attorney that has been assigned to Brian Koberger to represent him. Yes, it was actually ordered by Hitler. Now, Hitler didn't pick out this attorney, folks. There's a big difference. People are out there are saying that, FOIAproject.org is an organization that tells you exactly, hold on a minute. Let me grab this because I want to put this up on the screen. EWU versus the FBI, District of Columbia in Washington. They requested audio and video records of the Columbine shooting in 1999. EWU Media also requested a fee waiver. The agency acknowledged receipt of the request and told EWU Media that there would be a cost associated with processing the request. And the FBI denied EWU Media a request for a fee waiver. And then they went through the whole process. And what happened at the end of this process? Well, here's the complaint in the doc. They paid $402 and they had the summons and they did all this and they went through a whole process. And it actually took them almost, let me just see, how many years? Couple of years. 23, a year, almost a year. And it goes on and on and on. 22, 23. And you can go and see the process. And then there was an order granting motion of time, the defendant's summary judgment. And then there was a stipulation of dismissal without prejudice by the FBI in 23. Now, yes, they do have some big wins under their belt. This is one that I was really interested in. And don't you wonder why there was a stipulation? That means both sides came to agreement that they wouldn't ask for anything else, that it can never be filed again because it's, no, it can be because it is without prejudice. With prejudice is meaning you can't file again. But don't you question why they both said, okay, well, we're not going to pursue asking for any more information because factually, what did they get? What did they get? Did this really happen? Was this a simple incident? What really happened? Were their body cams not working? Were their audio not working? Did they not have the documents? Or were they afraid to hand them out? Were they afraid that people would pick them apart like the Idaho 4 case? Yes, it can be filed again. I was working the L&D the morning of Columbine, and it was sad seeing new babies as so many teens died. I'm sorry you experienced that, Teresa. But why would they hide all this if it really happened? Why would they hide everything and redact everything from this case? Why would they do that? I've never seen anyone come forward and talk about this case other than on documentaries. I've never seen anyone come out and talk about this case until articles. I've never seen anyone socially on social media talk about this case, but yet there are plenty of people on social media that talk about their cases. They talk about the experience that they had on their own free will. I have never seen anybody in this case talk about this on their own free will. Never. Think about that for a moment while we wait in the next 10 minutes or so for Judge Megan Marshall to come on. And I want you to think about something I'm going to show you. Think about it long and hard. Because I saw this video and I just had to share it. You know that if I see a video that hits me and it has me thinking and making questions and thinking different, you know that I'm going to share it with you. I saw this on TikTok. I'm going to show you anyways. The music I might get a ding for, but I'm going to show you anyways. Because this harsh advice, you may not be able to stomach. And this is exactly what the guy tells you. Let's listen.
You said you wanted the truth, so here it is. Frank Sinatra, 1,200 songs, 209 hits. That's a 17% success rate. Babe Ruth, 8,399 attempts, 714 home runs. That's an 8.5% success rate. This one's crazy. Pablo Picasso, 150,000 pieces. Ready? 1,170 hits. That is a 0.7% success rate. The math is terrible. That is the truth of success. I think you become infinitely more successful the more willing you are to take shots and actually fail. What's funny is the most successful people of any generation and in any industry were willing to just fail more. They didn't say, how many times can I win? How many times can I succeed at something? They said, how many times am I willing to put my ego aside and fail until I become the best or the greatest to ever do it? And you're over here saying you're scared to fail. Next time you stress, read these statistics again and tell me you're scared to fail.
And I don't know about you, but I'm willing to fail. And I have failed over and over and over again. And I love it every single time I fail because it brings you to the next step of success. You never give up. It's right around the corner. It's within your grasp. And that's why I'm here to also encourage on my channel. Never give up. And I'll admit we're human. We want to give up. But we are not giving up here. We will stand firm and tall, especially to the bullies who may not like us, because we're not going to quit. I don't stop fighting for justice. And I show you the experts' documents. I show you the body cam. I hardly ever make my own opinion or jab people. But if you push me, I'm going to get a little spicy. And that's just a fair warning. Warning, not warming. It's just a little fair warning. And for those of you making comments about me on other pages, I see you. And I've documented it. So keep going. You don't know who you're messing with, and I don't make any promises I don't keep. Okay? None. And for those of you trying to discredit the experts, trying to discredit people with professional background, shame on you. Shame on you that are sharing division. Shame on you that are sharing my post that somebody basically pissed me off. You want to call me out when you see the receipts and when you show up, when you see who shows up here on my channel. I told you months ago something was in the works. I've told all of you, if you've been paying attention and listening. Haven't anybody wondered where I've been getting information from that actually happens before it happens? Do you think that's just some random thing? Do you think I'm intuitive or I have a crystal ball? No, folks. No. Go back and watch all my videos starting a year and a half ago, step by step. I'm usually a month ahead. Then you'll figure it out. Who went down to Boise to go talk to Brian Koberger? Who did? Who in this community went down there to talk to him? Please stand up. Who went down and talked to the Ada County Sheriff's Office? Who went down there? Please stand up. Who created Justice for All so that you guys could see this process? I'll stand up. You know I'm always going to tell you the truth with full integrity. I'm not here to have drama. I avoid that shit like the plague. And you know me. I don't start shit with other people. But if they come knocking on my door, you got another thing coming. You think I'm just going to back down and be quiet? No. Not especially with the bully. Okay? And if you can't read and you can't use logic, then that's on you. I would like to visit or write him. You can write him. There is a post on my wall that you can go right to. His address is there. The link to email him is there. You have to go through a million different processes, put money on there to send email with stamps, but it's available. And he is now receiving mail, folks. He is now receiving mail. He is now on YouTube. He is now able to pay attention and watch whatever he wants. He has a little bit more freedom. He has a little bit more freedom. Guts and black powder fan, how dare you threaten me? I see that as a communicable threat under the FBI IC3 team. And if you think you're using a VPN, they're going to find out exactly who you are. I've screenshotted it. I haven't deleted anything. You send whoever you need to my door, and I will be ready and waiting with my 14 video cameras, my dogs, and also, guess what? I have a beautiful couple of side pieces. I wasn't a trained sniper, but I was a pistol marksman. So go ahead. Go ahead. You think your little slick little friends that are all ex-cons on the internet trolling people that are factually bringing you the truth? Keep it up. Keep it up. We're going to go to some music and the live stream before they start streaming. I'm going to go ahead and make this as big as I can. I don't take threats to, yeah. Holy shit, I was responding in real time. You know who you are. How dare you? I'm saying she sent them to your door. Oh, I see. And I apologize for my misunderstanding your comment. I don't take threats too lightly, folks. Believe me. I apologize to you, Guts and Black Powder fan. You may want to change your screen name, right? I've had people threaten my life. I've had people physically attack me, and boy, they were sitting in jail regretting it. All right? Totally misunderstood you. I have just been beat up over the last 24 hours. People coming to my channel, posting spam and all kinds of crap. Ooh, the YouTube streets are getting juicy. No, I won't back down to a bully. I won't. And you know what? All over social media, I don't know about you, but I'm praying for Perez Hilton if you were watching his live. It was awful. They knocked on his door. People reported it to the local sheriff's office. They knocked on his door and they took him to the hospital. And I just have to call out TikTok. Shame on you for leaving that stream up as long as they did. Shame on them. And you know what? What's really sad is that they would take down a factual video, but leave something like that up. Yeah, it's wild. Absolutely wild. All right. Now, while we're waiting, I'm going to put some music on. I'm going to grab some ice water, and we are going to sit tight because the stream will start. We're going to see whatever they decide. Sit tight, guys. Grab your snacks, your coffee, your tea, your popcorn, whatever your choice, and let's get to it. And you know what's crazy? You know what's really crazy are the crazies out there that don't think somebody would go fight for Brian Kohberger as a private attorney. That's what I think. There are powerful attorneys that would take his case at a moment's notice. You know that I've been working behind the scenes for a year and a half, folks. I don't take this very lightly when I see and I know, and from the records, someone is factually innocent. Being backed in a corner to take a plea deal, I've seen this over and over and over again. And a defense attorney that values the Constitution of the United States like a former military JAG attorney would risk their reputation to take on a client. They would do it in a heartbeat if the family said. And I'm talking about a high JAG attorney, former ex-military, that would take on a case like this. But first they have to see the evidence. They're not going to go dig for it. Hence, This is why Justice for All exists. It is a shortcut to see the most damning things that have come out in this case that clearly explain Brian Kohberger is innocent, factually, like Ann Taylor stated. Who else put this together for someone to just come in, read the most important reports, see the most important information, and be able to say, shit, something's wrong here. We got to figure this out. What are we doing? Yes, I've written the DOJ. Yes, I've written the president, Pam Bondi, when she was the Attorney General. There are other people. Yes. See, when I sign my name, Veteran of the United States of America, U.S. Navy, people pay attention, folks. And if you haven't seen my whole plethora of videos of police departments I've worked with in the past, sheriff's departments I've worked with in the past, you're missing out on what a real advocate for justice does. So I'm going to play some music. I'm going to go grab my coffee. I need coffee this morning. And let's sit tight until they go live.
A tiny spark. From shadows deep, a whisper starts to bloom. A tiny spark, defying all the gloom. They said we were too small to eat, to rise. Ignored the fire burning in our eyes. But every root we set, a promise made. A silent strength that never will evade. Across the field, forever standing tall, banish every fear. We will rise and triumph echoes, reaching for the sky. Unstoppable power, eternally we fly.
Now they're going to get started in court. Obviously, they do roll call and they get all the attorneys in place and everybody getting ready to go and they clear the calendar. And one thing for sure, this is happening simultaneously somewhere else. And you know, when people send me stuff, I've got eyes everywhere, folks. But I will say this, whoever this person is sharing lies about me and defaming me and slandering me and libeling me because this is written. Jules, you probably already know this, but Phoenix Person has a whole URL for over a year now trying to raise money, which is a lie. That is a lie. And yet they'll go and they'll share all this. Believe me, I'm keeping track, folks. I've got people out there watching what's going on. And when they send me screenshots, yeah, I'm watching. I've got eyes everywhere. Even when I'm live, I've got eyes. So if you think you're doing something to disparage me, defame me, libel me, you are. But I know it's not true. And my viewers know it's not true. 100%. I know, like I said, I sent $10 over a year ago just to make sure I have a claim against her. Let's see the proof. Let's see the proof. Let's see the proof that you sent me $10 for Brian Koberger's attorney. Let's see that. Oh, and since I'm a total fuckwit wasp, whoever you are, I'll figure out who you are. Very interesting to slander people. In public, by the way. In public. That's okay. We all have our day in court. I can't wait for yours. That's all I have to say with that. I've got obviously more screenshots going on. People are sending me all the time. They're paying attention. There was a time, there was a fake Phoenix channel too, Susan Russo. Interesting, Susan. Interesting. So if somebody's out there with the word Phoenix, please be careful. You guys that know me know there's a whole lot of stuff happening out there. And don't you ever wonder when there's new people that come on the scene, all of a sudden they start getting all kinds of stuff? All right, here is the stream. We're beginning.
All right, we are going on the record then. This is EWU Media LLC versus the City of Moscow, the Moscow Police Department. This is cause number CV 2926162. This morning I have Ms. Kennedy appearing here on Zoom on behalf of the plaintiff in this matter. Miss James is also present, appearing as EWU this morning. I have Mr. Jones and Miss Brereton appearing here on Zoom on behalf of the defendants in this matter. Ms. Batista is also present here for the hearing today as well. In addition to that, I have Mr. James appearing on behalf of the interveners, Karen Laramie and Stacy Chapin in this case. And James Chapin and Maisie Chapin. This is the time set in the matter for the petition. Court has reviewed a number of documents in anticipation of oral argument here today. In anticipation, the court has reviewed the original petition in this matter. Prior to the proceeding here today, the court did enter a decision regarding the city's initial response. In that matter, the court did note that it was denying the city's request to dismiss EWU's petition based upon a failure to register to do business in the state of Idaho. That decision was issued on July 2nd of 2026. Since that time, the city has filed a supplemental responsive brief, 3 different declarations in the matter. Declaration of Anthony Dollinger, declaration of Timothy Smallridge, and declaration of Lori Hopkins. And then EWU has filed a supplemental reply brief, and the court has reviewed that as well. Court also had reviewed initially, of course, the responsive briefing filed by Mr. James back on April 20th at that time. So first, Ms. Kennedy, any preliminary matters to take up before the court hears argument this morning?
I don't think so. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Jones, any preliminary matters to take up?
No, Your Honor, we're prepared for argument.
Right. And Mr. James, any preliminary matters to take up?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I guess initially with that information, my one request or preliminary matter is that the city did file a respondent's request and records log. Subsequent to that, Ms. Kennedy, on behalf of EWU, filed in her reply a table of records at issue. The records at issue that were filed by Ms. Kennedy appears to be, I guess, less than what was included in the respondent's request and records log. And I'm specifically looking at the last EWU request, which was August 28th of 2025, and which was denied or responded to, excuse me, by the city on September 15th of 2025. So Ms. Kennedy, I guess on behalf of the plaintiffs, are you essentially conceding or saying that the only records at issue are those that are listed in your reply, or are there still some records that EWU had initially indicated in its August 28, 2025 request that have not been received that you still wish the court to address in its overall decision?
Your Honor, I think we can safely say that what's in Appendix A and B is what we're requesting the court to rule on. There are some documents that the city put in their log and that were in the August 28th, 2025 request that may or may not have payment issues related to them. And so I think those are things that if it's just a matter of EWU making payment for those items, I think that Zach and I can work that out. And we can work that out with the city, but we just want to make it simple for the court. And so yes, you can look at the Appendix A and Appendix B, and those are the records that we would like the court to rule on.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jones, are you in agreement with that at this point?
Your Honor, I'm fine with that. It does kind of, I guess I was going to, and I will include in my oral argument that up until this point, we really didn't know what.
But I
was being requested, and it hasn't been narrowed down to this small amount until the eve of the hearing. And so part of our argument is going to be that we weren't sure what exactly was being requested, and that is a significant part of why we kind of got to where we are. And so I'll incorporate that into my argument. But with respect to the fact that this is all they're requesting, I mean, I guess I'm fine with the court narrowing it to just that, as long as we can incorporate that other aspect of our argument.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. James, anything to add on that?
All I would add, Your Honor, is I am pleased that petitioner did narrow it down. This is very helpful, and I think it helped to move the process forward.
All right, thank you. All right, with that then, Ms. Kennedy, I will start with you and you can present argument at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. This case is one of the most significant criminal investigations in Idaho history, and Moscow led the investigation with assistance from other agencies. Now, these other agencies may have produced certain investigatory records, but these records were undisputably used, retained, and compiled by Moscow, and they became Idaho public records. So they must be disclosed unless an exemption applies, and Moscow simply hasn't proven an exemption. They have raised essentially 3 exemptions, which is custodianship, foreign law, and privacy, and I would like to go through each of those exemptions in turn. The first exemption that they've raised is custodianship, but the word custodian in the statute is not an exemption unto itself. And the Idaho Conservation League case, which we cited in our briefing, explains that the identification of the proper custodian has no bearing on whether the public records are exempt from disclosure. The legislature didn't intend custodian to be its own exemption. Custodian is simply the person within the agency who has certain administrative responsibilities for the records. But even if we interpret custodian as its own exemption, the city certainly had custody and control over these documents and is their custodian. They don't dispute that they have custody of the documents, which I think we can agree upon is some kind of physical possession. But they dispute that they have control. And the dictionary defines control as to exercise restraining or directing influence over or to have power over. And they certainly had control over these records. They requested assistance from other agencies, so they essentially requested that these records be created to begin with. These records were then provided by these assisting agencies, the FBI, Pennsylvania State Police, etc. And those were provided to Moscow to assist it in its investigation. Moscow has stated in its declarations that it was the lead agency for handling physical evidence. And that evidence went into their files, into their evidence log. This information was compiled into their files. And our statute related to investigatory records is quite broad, and it defines those records as anything compiled into the agency's files for law enforcement purposes. And these records were used and retained by Moscow, which makes them public records. And presumably these records were given to the prosecution to prosecute this case, which presumably would give them to the defense. And we can assume that some of these records, or maybe all of them, were part of the probable cause to arrest and prosecute Kohberger. So they underlie Moscow's activities as a law enforcement agency and as a governmental agency of Idaho. So they controlled these records, and every record, or I think most records mentioned in Appendix A, are referenced in a publicly available police report. And that's what that SUP number means, is that refers to the police report in which the document appears. And so all these documents were used in some way by Moscow Police Department. And so because of that, we believe that they were therefore controlled by Moscow. And these documents are a major part of the Idaho criminal investigation. If, for example, you take the Kohberger interrogation video, that is a clear Idaho record. Brett Payne from Moscow PD flew to Pennsylvania along with a member of the FBI to interrogate Koberger in Pennsylvania. My understanding is that that was recorded by Pennsylvania law enforcement at their facility, but merely because it was recorded in Pennsylvania, in a Pennsylvania facility, doesn't somehow transform that into a Pennsylvania and not an Idaho investigatory record, particularly when Idaho law enforcement is there taking part in the interrogation. And so these records, this is a key Idaho record, and many of these other records that we are seeking are key parts of the Idaho investigation. And it would be poor public policy to say that these key criminal investigatory records that were requested to be created by Moscow, used by Moscow in their investigation and prosecution, were then exempt from disclosure to the public merely because they originated with one of these assisting agencies. The public has a right to know about how law enforcement conducted this investigation, and failure to disclose this information just invites unfounded speculation into this case. And so we believe that these documents should be disclosed because Moscow is the custodian and it has custody and control of these records. So the next exemption that's been raised.
I'm just going to interrupt you there for just a minute, kind of taking the pieces in part here. So in reviewing your briefing, but hearing your argument today, are you saying that, taking for example, the example you provided about the interview, so is it EWU's position that if Moscow or some law enforcement part of Moscow, whether it be the city of Moscow or any agency related to Moscow, if they helped in any way in assisting or took part in creating the record, then those are the ones in which they should be able to disclose? Or are you also extending that to, for example, taking your example of a Koberger investigation, if that exists, I don't know, but taking your word for that, if it was just Pennsylvania law enforcement and the FBI who interrogated him, Corporal Payne was not there at all, but yet that record is in the possession of Moscow because it was shared with them, is it EWU's position that they still must then disclose that, even though it was created and the Moscow had no part in creating that?
Yes, and I think that's because the Idaho Public Records Act is very broad. It says that public records are anything used or retained by the city, and the investigatory records exemption is arguably even broader, and it says investigatory records are those compiled in an agency's records, law enforcement records, just to summarize it. And so if it's that broad, that suggests that information compiled by law enforcement, regardless of who created it, becomes an Idaho public record, and it's subject to disclosure unless there's a particular exemption under the statute. So even if it was an FBI video, an FBI interrogation, so long as Moscow is using it, retaining it, compiling it into their records, it is an Idaho public record that's subject to disclosure. My example for the Koberger interrogation video was merely to just show how absurd this seems to me, that this was actually an interrogation that appears to be conducted by Moscow, but because it happened in another state, or it might have been filmed by Pennsylvania, that the public does not get to see it.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. And then I'm going to follow up with a question that I think you're probably going to address in this next part, but with regard to the next exemption concerning other law and how it may apply, whether it be federal or other state law. My question is this, is that if EWU were to go to Pennsylvania to get the Pennsylvania record, And Pennsylvania law is more restrictive than Idaho, but Idaho happens to, an agency here in Idaho happens to have that record through that law enforcement sharing process. Then my understanding, it would be EWU's argument that they should be able to come to Idaho, even though they were rejected in Pennsylvania to get that record that was created by Pennsylvania. They should still be able to come to Idaho.
That's exactly right.
And can you talk about, if any, a chilling effect that might have upon law enforcement agencies in being able to share records and investigations like this?
I think that's possible. But we have a policy in the state of Idaho that records are subject to disclosure unless there's a statutory exemption out there that expressly exempts the document from disclosure. Pennsylvania, they have a different public policy, apparently. They keep a lot more things private or confidential. Idaho favors disclosure. Now, Pennsylvania could, I kind of doubt that law enforcement says, well, I wonder if I'm going to not help Idaho or not give Idaho information because the public of Idaho might see this. And that seems to me that would be unlikely, that Pennsylvania law enforcement isn't going to assist because somebody in Idaho might later get the record. I suppose that could happen in certain scenarios, but our legislature has made the decision that we're going to favor disclosure of records. And the legislature, could, maybe the court decides that we get the Pennsylvania records and the FBI records, and later the Idaho legislature could say, well, we need to do something about this and create an exemption for records received from outside agencies. But they haven't done that yet. They've decided the public policy of the state is going to favor disclosure. So I see that as a legislative problem and not a problem for the court. I don't think the court can create an exemption that's not there to serve a public policy. And I think it's a speculative public policy because it doesn't seem to me to be logical that law enforcement from another state wouldn't help, because several years down the road when the case is done, a record might get out. If anything, the law enforcement, I think, that was involved in this case should be proud of their work and should want the public to see what was done here and how the investigation was conducted, because it was, to me, as an outside observer, there was, this was ultimately a successful prosecution. And so the public should be able to see those materials.
I think you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. And so the next exemption then would be foreign law, and that's state and federal. And state law appears in Idaho Code 74-1041A. And when we look at exemptions under the Idaho Public Records Act, as the court is aware, we narrowly construe any exemptions, and that includes the meaning of the word state. And so, as we've argued in our briefing, state law means Idaho. It means things like the attorney-client privilege. There are other areas of state law that exempt certain documents. And so state law doesn't mean the law of any other state. It means the law of Idaho. And really, if we interpret state law to mean any state's laws, that's really an absurd reading of the statute, that somehow Pennsylvania or Washington law would apply to Idaho agencies and Idaho records. But even if we can interpret state to mean any state's records, the Pennsylvania and the Washington laws that have been cited only apply by their terms to their own agencies. They don't apply to Idaho or outside states in making public records determinations. Similarly, with federal law, the city's most recent brief was the first time we actually understood what federal law they were claiming an exemption under, and that turned out to be FOIA. But there's a Idaho case that's directly contrary to that position, and that's Magic Valley, which we cited in our briefing. And that case states that the FOIA only governs the disclosure of public information by authorities of the government of the United States. It doesn't purport to govern disclosure information by state agencies. And so that's exactly the argument that the city is making here, that FOIA somehow governs Moscow and governs the state agencies, but Magic Valley dispenses with that and says FOIA only applies to certain authorities of the United States. There are federal laws, for example, HIPAA and FERPA, that apply directly to states. So for example, if I went and tried to get information about a patient from a state hospital, or I tried to get educational records from U of I would get an objection under HIPAA or FERPA for sure, because those exemptions actually apply to the state and local agencies. But FOIA is different. FOIA doesn't work that way. It only applies to the government of the United States. And so a federal law, or at least the particular federal law cited here, does not exempt these documents. So moving into the third exemption that they've raised, which is privacy. And we cited the Wade v. Taylor and the Hymas cases. And those cases say that there's no categorical exemption for investigatory records. The city has to show for each record that there's a reasonable probability of harm. So here they would have to show for each record that there's a reasonable probability of an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, and we just haven't seen that here. They need to produce some kind of evidence of that, and they haven't done so. And we provided, as I mentioned earlier, Appendix A, which lists the records that have not been disclosed to EWU. I don't know if the city is claiming a privacy exemption of some sort over those records, but we have not seen that to date. So assuming that they're not claiming a privacy exemption over those records, and we're just really talking about Appendix B, which is the body cam footage, they have asserted a privacy interest over those records, but the scope of that privacy interest has already been decided by the court in the permanent injunction. For example, there are witness interviews that have been blurred, and we understand that the court has already decided that those should not be blurred. The bedrooms are probably overly redacted, and we don't want to tread upon the victims and their families' privacy in that regard, but the court's order was narrowed to the death scene and the surrounding area, is my understanding of the order. And the bedrooms appear to be overly redacted. There are more bedrooms redacted than there are victims, so to me that suggests there's over redactions there as well. So we've requested for those records that the court conduct an in-camera review and order certain redactions to be removed as necessary. And I would also like to mention that the city's briefing focuses, well, they've focused on EWU's business model at several different times in the course of this litigation. But EWU's business model is really irrelevant. In Wade v. Taylor and in other cases, the court has made clear that the requester's motivation is really irrelevant for requesting the records, and agencies aren't supposed to discriminate based on who the requester is. And so any sort of reference to EWU's business model is just irrelevant to this case. So with that being said, none of the exemptions that they've raised, custodianship, foreign law, or privacy apply. And so these records must be disclosed because no exemption has been proven. And in my briefing, I also did mention attorney fees, because there wasn't, to me, clarity in the statute in terms of when we request those. So I can argue that now, or I can wait later, depending on the court's preference. But unless you would like to argue the attorney fees portion, I don't have any further comments for today.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. You can go ahead and argue that now, just so we have it, and then I'll hear from Mr. Jones.
Okay. We did request attorney fees under two separate provisions. I believe it was 74-124 and then 74-116. And 74-116 is kind of the typical attorney fees provision for public records requests, and it mentions frivolousness. But we did also cite Idaho Code 74-124, which that's the investigatory records exemption, which has its own fee provision. And it doesn't require a showing of frivolousness, it just requires the court's discretion to award fees. But we listed a number of reasons why we believe an award of fees would be appropriate in our briefing. So the court can reference those, but I think something that stands out to me today is that every argument that the city has made related to an exemption is contrary to established authority in some way. The custodian exemption that was raised is against the Idaho Conservation League case. The foreign law argument that was made is against the Magic Valley case. The privacy argument that was made is against the permanent injunction. And of course, you can make arguments that are, for reversing authority or for changing prior authority. But there was no argument made about why these cases or the court's prior order was wrong or was subject to challenge. The city just sort of argued these things anew. And so because of that, in addition to the other issues we've listed in our briefing, we believe an award of attorney fees and costs would be appropriate. So to overall summarize, what we're requesting is disclosure of the documents in Appendix A, an in-camera review and removal of redactions consistent with the permanent injunction, which would be Appendix B, and then our fees and costs. But thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Jones, response?
Thank you, Your Honor. To begin with, Idaho Code 74-102 sub 4 requires that the requests have enough specificity to allow the public agency to determine what the records are and what the records being sought are. It does not require the public agency to engage in any sort of investigation regarding what exactly the petitioner is requesting. And in Wade v. Taylor, which is cited by the petitioner and for other reasons, the main holding in that case is actually that the records that are being reviewed by the court are reviewed at the time of the request, not at the time of the hearing. And that's kind of what we have right now, where we have a much narrower review of the records that are being requested, whereas what the city's been really kind of having to work through is the information that was attached to the declaration of Amy James on March 30th to determine what exactly the records that the petitioner was requesting. And so until the Appendix A came, which is respectfully just too late, the city really didn't know what records the petitioner was requesting, and they lacked specificity. They were ambiguous and they couldn't be met with reasonable effort.
So Mr. Jones, I do want to ask though, in the respondents in the city's request and records log, and that's, if we look at the time of the request before this litigation was initiated, so August 25th of 2025 was the last request after it had gone through some revisions with the city's responses, and the city responded to that. In that request, the EWU, for example, put a request of in the supplement. So the city has previously provided on the website access to the public to a bunch of information to include the police reports. EWU put on there supplemental 42, which directs you to that supplemental. The surviving roommate's first interviews dated 11/13 of 2022. And the city's response was the city was unable to identify a specific responsive record without additional information from EWU, and actually requested the officer's name and or the initials of the individual, amongst other things. And when you open up that supplemental 42, I guess I'm wondering, how was it difficult for the city to identify the specific responsive record to that?
I think that the answer to that, Your Honor, is just that without listing the names, the location, the time of the records requested, the city can't just go through the 58 terabytes of information that are that the city has relevant to this investigation. And so this without specificity, this isn't a discovery proceeding, and the city needs that specificity to determine what exactly is being requested, i.e. names of the officers, location, times, etc.
I guess I'm wondering, because I think if I recall, if you pull up that supplement off the webpage, it's 4 or 5 pages, and then it is an interview with 3 different people. So I guess I'm on top of that, Mr. Jones, I'm wondering, the city provided declarations. Clearly, there's a lot of information in this case. No one is disputing that. But there's also, it looks like, there's been a situation where the city, I think the language was essentially that other agencies have often just provided information or dumped the information without it being really categorized, or so it makes, in some way, the readings of those declarations make the court question at this point whether it has been categorized, whether the city even knows all of the information that it does have, which then would make it, understanding the burden is on the requester, which is EWU, but wouldn't it make it very challenging for a requester to request information if the city doesn't know what it actually has, because there's so much information? Do you see
Yes, I certainly see Your Honor's point. I don't think that if this were a discovery proceeding, we would be having a different conversation, but this is a Public Records Act proceeding. And so the onus is really on the requester to specifically request the information that it's seeking. And if the requester doesn't know what information it's seeking, and it just wants a broad category of information, that's not an appropriate request. That would be an appropriate discovery request, but it can't just request all surveillance footage and expect the city to go outside the 4 corners of the request and try to determine what exactly the petitioner is seeking. And so there is a little bit of this is an unusual situation. In most public records requests and most public records situations, this wouldn't occur. But given the volume of information in this case, the city can't just spend all the time searching for unspecified information.
And I appreciate that, I understand that. I guess I'm just a little troubled by some of the, again, in the records request or records log, you have 2I, EWU requested from supplemental 271, which is provided on the city's website. They've narrowed it down to an interview with initials KD, dated April 12th of 2024, and an audio CD, item 876, as specifically referenced, but the city saying we're unable to identify a specific responsive record without additional information. I guess the question is for purposes of the statute, I think the language is pretty clear as far as them providing the specificity to allow the agency to reasonably go about finding the document. And so I guess I'm wondering if how more specific does a person need to be, or an individual or an entity need to be in requesting, and what is the consideration of the reasonableness? Now, I understand in this case, does the court take into consideration also reasonableness in the sense of the amount of individuals who've been working on, for the city, who've been working on this? There being, as I understand it, 2 full-time people, the clerk and the records custodian, or the individual, Mr. Smallridge, working at evidence custodian, primarily being the ones who are trying to find or locate or provide or produce this information. But I suppose my question is that does that or should that stand in the way of the city being able to provide it?
I guess I'm not quite sure exactly what Your Honor is asking. I'll just sort of summarize it as there is a litany of requests here. Appendix A has really, really narrowed that request, but we haven't been reviewing Appendix A. We've been reviewing the declarations and the petition that make us we really have to squint at those to determine what is being requested. And even that is taking a lot of effort, and I would submit that it's more than reasonable effort to determine what is being requested. And the question of when is at the time of the request, not at the time of the hearing after we've sort of nailed down some of this information. And so the city has not been able to respond to the requests generally with reasonable effort because of the lack of specificity in the requests, again, on August 18th at the time of the request.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. And then I guess to follow up on my initial question from the beginning of the hearing then, based upon this argument, would the city be asking the court to kind of disregard Appendix A, but go off of what was requested, which is from the, as I understand it, would be the August 28, 2025 request, make its decision based upon that?
So I think legally the court is obliged to make its decision based on the August 18th, 2025 request. From a practical standpoint, we appreciate that it's narrowed down, but that's not what was briefed, that's not what was prepared, that's not what was argued up until last Friday. And so, had the petitioner presented that information, frankly, prior to filing his petition or any time during the pendency of this case, rather than less than a week before the hearing, we may have had a different conversation with the petitioner, and we may be having a different conversation today. But I do think, to answer your question, I appreciate the practical nature of just responding to what's being requested, but legally, we're looking at the August 18th request.
Right. Thank you for the clarification. You may continue your argument.
Thank you. I'll move on to the question of unwarranted invasion of privacy. Idaho Code 74-124-1C provides an exemption from disclosure for materials that are an unwarranted invasion of privacy, and that's defined in 74-101-17A. There is not a lot of Idaho case law determining what an unwarranted invasion of privacy is, which is why the city pointed to federal case law. The city reasonably relied on that federal case law based on guidance, frankly, from this court in Laramie, which also relied on federal case law to determine what an unwarranted invasion of privacy is. And I just say that to address sort of the attorney's fees argument later on down the road. In any event, the petitioner submits that this decision has been made in the Laramie case as res judicata, and that res judicata applies to what is an unwarranted invasion of privacy. And that's not exactly applicable here because the Laramie case focused on a couple of specific named litigants. And in fact, the petitioner objected to the standing of the interveners to discuss anything outside of those specific named litigants. They didn't object to the standing of the city to address those matters. And so the Laramie case was actually a very narrow decision. And one of the takeaways from the Laramie case is that once this information is disclosed, we can't get that back. And so should the court find that there is an unwarranted invasion of privacy and that all of these surviving roommates, surviving family members that weren't litigants in the Laramie case, not to mention anybody that was caught up in the scope of the investigation who disclosed numerous private details, including, their addresses, their names, their whereabouts on this day, all sorts of private information. They have an unwarranted an interest in their own privacy as well. So we point to the federal cases because the federal cases, there's a fair bit of case law examining what this is, and there's also a balancing test. And that's why, similarly with the balancing test, that's why we point to what the petitioner's motives are, because it's relevant to the balancing test and is relevant to the privacy interests of the individuals who are not litigants in the Laramie case. And we submit that the balancing tests rests in favor of the of protecting the privacy interests of the individuals who participated in this investigation. And again, Chief Dallinger's declaration goes into the nature and the wide net that was provided of information that was provided in this. And it's our position that those privacy interests are paramount in this specific case relative to the interests of the petitioner. With respect to the custodian of records argument, Your Honor, Idaho Code 74-103-1, it provides that only the custodian of records needs to respond to a public records request. And then it defines custodian of records as the person with custody and control of the records. It's our position that the city doesn't have control of the records, and the agencies that created the records are the ones that have control of these records. And I outlined in our brief as to why that is. But significantly, the city didn't, it's the prosecution that used these records. It's the prosecution, which is not the city, that was compiling these records for the purposes of prosecuting Mr. Koberger. And the city was just working with the other agencies in compiling the records. And to use the example of the city police officer going to Pennsylvania to conduct an investigation, the records that were created by the Pennsylvania police are Pennsylvania records. The records that were created by the FBI are FBI records. Any police reports, if the Idaho City of Moscow officer had a body camera and he created those during that investigation, those would be Idaho records. But essentially what the petitioner is doing here is abrogating both state and federal law for the out-of-state agencies by simply requesting these records in Idaho. And it's our position that that's precluded because, one, the city is not the custodian of these records. They don't have control over these records in the way that is contemplated, but also because Idaho Code 74-104-1A provides that records are exempt from any federal or state law, if they're exempt by any federal or state law. And of course, nobody's arguing that federal law is not explicitly worded in that statute, but we're certainly arguing that state law says what it means, what it says, which is simply state law. And of course, I point out that later on in that same statute, it provides the Idaho Supreme Court. It doesn't just say the Supreme Court. And so I think that distinction there is telling. The federal records, the federal law does apply. The Pennsylvania and Washington state law also does apply because of 74-104-1A. And the petitioner provides a little bit of a chicken or the egg argument in the sense that they argue that for example, the right to know law out of Pennsylvania only applies to Pennsylvania. Well, we are talking about Pennsylvania records here. And so because these are Pennsylvania records that were generated in Pennsylvania that are governed by Pennsylvania laws, the court should consider that not because of the Pennsylvania laws, but because the Idaho Code contemplated that. And similarly with the FOIA argument, these records are probably not disclosable under FOIA with the exemption 7, exemption 5, et cetera, the ones that are listed in the brief, the Privacy Act. And because the Idaho Code contemplated federal exclusions, including FOIA, the FOIA applies. Now, the petitioner points to Magic Valley to hold that FOIA doesn't apply, but that's not exactly what the Magic Valley case says. The Magic Valley case specifically focuses on the question of whether or not names are personnel records, and it's specific, and it's narrow to that question. And the Magic Valley case holds that had the Supreme Court, or sorry, the Idaho legislature choose to include names as personnel records, they would have done so specifically in the personnel records exemption, which is not what we're discussing here. So it's our position that the Magic Valley case is inapplicable to this argument. Moving on to the fees question, in the brief, essentially the petitioner is saying, well, we'll pay the fees. Well, this brings us back to the top where we don't know what the petitioner is requesting. And so we're having to anticipate essentially what's being requested in this briefing. And it's our position that Idaho Code 74102 provides that it's appropriate for the city to require fees in order for to respond to the requests. And on the eve of the oral argument, the petitioner says, "Oh well, we'll pay the fees." I mean, that could have been and should have been done at the time of the petition or at the time of the request. So the refusing to disclose that information because the fees at the time of the refusal of the withholding of that information is appropriate, and it just kind of brings us back to the top that until the Appendix A was provided, the city really had no clear idea of what was being requested. Finally, regarding attorney's fees, we would just simply submit that this was not, that attorney's fees aren't appropriate under either statute. The city's not trying to obstruct justice. The city's not trying to inappropriately withhold information. The city's trying to protect investigative processes of law enforcement. The city's trying to protect privacy interests of persons that aren't parties to this litigation. The city's trying to make sure it doesn't err on the side of providing information that can't be brought back that probably should have been withheld. And so the city's not obstructing anything really. We're trying to comply with the code, and frankly, this is just one of those cases that needs judicial guardrails, no matter how the court decides. And so with that, Your Honor, I'll submit.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. James?
Thank you, Your Honor. Leander James on behalf of Karen, interveners Karen Laramie, Stacy Chapin, James Chapin, and Maisie Chapin. You know, ever since, Your Honor, ever since the court entered its judgment granting in part the permanent injunction in the case of Chapin v. et al. v. City of Moscow, LATOC case number CV 292507555, I felt like kind of like the little Dutch boy with his finger in the dike, trying to reasonably and under the statute prevent dissemination of information that is harmful to my clients. I think the issues were very well briefed. The court will note I didn't write a supplemental brief because I felt the court had sufficient information. And I also had been in contact with Mr. Jones and with Ms. Kennedy at some point along the way. So I was aware of what they were going to say. But I do have some additional comments here that maybe will add something meaningful. First, the impact of the release of information on privacy rights. You know, petitioner argues correctly that EWU's business model is irrelevant to the case. And I say correctly insofar as you look at it from the point of view of the court under Idaho's FOIA, Idaho Code 74-101 at sequence, is not to consider what the information is going to be used for. However, that logic does not carry forward when the court is to analyze the unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. And here's what I'm saying. I appreciate the court under the FOIA may not consider what the requester intends to use the information for. However, the court and the city are duty bound under the statute to determine whether that information being disseminated will result in unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. And the court has already seen in the prior case, the Chapin et al. Case, that the use of this information results in severe and permanent detrimental impacts to my clients and likely others, and that can be considered by the court. So, to give sort of a raw example, I understand that not this court, but another court released the autopsy records. I think they were already out there, and somebody used those with AI to try to generate images, gruesome images. And what I'm saying is the court should consider, and the city should consider, how this information out there will impact the unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. With that, I'll move to the new snag. It's a new snag here, I think, that has not been addressed. On July 27, 2026, and by the way, I would have briefed this, but it just happened. On July 27, 2026, in Ada County, case number CV 0126151094, and pursuant to Idaho Code Section 19-4901 through 19-4911, the convicted murderer, Mr. Koberger, filed for post-conviction relief. It's imperative that that case proceed uninfluenced by the public disclosure of information. This is an entirely separate analysis, but it impacts, I think, what we're doing here today. In the underlying criminal case, this court and the court of the Honorable Judge Hippler previously entered non-dissemination orders based upon the court's inherent authority to manage criminal proceedings and protect the defendant's constitutional rights to a fair trial. This court's ruling was later affirmed in Associated Press v. 2nd Judicial District of the State of Idaho, County of Latah, 172 Idaho 113, 2023 case. And the court stated, and I'll quote here because I think it's very relevant to frankly both analyses. The Supreme Court said, quote, "We recognize that our trial courts have an increasingly difficult task in balancing the Sixth Amendment rights of a defendant with the First Amendment protections afforded the press. With the advent of the internet and social media, the balancing act has become even more challenging today than it was in the 1960s and 70s, when Shepard and Calder were decided. Although these are well-guarded rights, those seeking to enforce them must still bow to the jurisdictional rules and procedural channels litigants are constrained to follow," unquote. And that's at Associated Press at page 124. The same logic is now triggered here. In his post-conviction relief case, Mr. Koberger and his court-appointed attorney, which he now has, will likely argue that new information has been dug up, by online sleuths, conspiracy buff, and others that are using this information that is being disclosed to then contact potential witnesses to, in fact, in some cases, harass the witnesses to find information out that they can then use to their economic advantage through blogging and so forth online. This is a new cycle. This is why, and I do belabor this a little bit because I think it's really critical. This is a new era we're in, and it's really unprecedented. We're dealing with something that this court has already set a precedent. I think that has rippled through, I know, other states, including Nevada. And the difficulty here is, and the tension between the Sixth Amendment and the First Amendment, are that this information gets disseminated, then it's thrown wide and far. So-called real crime sleuths and investigators and media then contact witnesses in the criminal case, and and influence these witnesses, and then they create conspiracy theories and so forth, and the court knows this in detail, I'm sure, that then turns around and can be used by the convicted murderer to then seek post-conviction relief. And I want to point out here, I'm not arguing Mr. Koberger's rights, but I am arguing the integrity of the system. I think what has to be considered is, as this information is let out, it will be used by the media in a way that can negatively impact the post-conviction relief process and the potential that it would be sent back for a new trial. And we've got a real mess on our hands because we've got just this deluge of information. The dam is broke and the information is out there, and it could very well corrupt the whole process that is still going on in the post-conviction relief process and the potential for a new trial. And looking at the appendices that petitioner provided, I see numerous references to witnesses and wanting unblurred faces and information about witnesses. Well, they're going to go contact these witnesses. And when you contact witnesses, you influence witnesses. And what then happens if the reality occurs that Mr. Koberger prevails in his post-conviction relief and is sent back for a new trial? For all the reasons the court entered a dissemination order in the underlying criminal case, all of those reasons are now present here to prevent further dissemination of anything for that matter. And I know it's difficult and it's always hard to bring a new argument up at oral argument. And it just happened. It just happened. The timing was, I mean, I've been dealing myself with a deluge of media trying to get at my client once the post-conviction relief was filed. I've been spending hours and days fending off media. I'll tell the court, as an officer of the court, it's been very difficult. And it's my honor to do so, but it's difficult work. I literally have to worry about media showing up at my client's door. So, some, Your Honor, I believe under the FOIA analysis, the court and Moscow, the city of Moscow, are duty bound to protect the privacy rights of not only my clients but the witnesses and all involved. However, I submit that it's an entirely new analysis now that we have the post-conviction relief case pending that warrants a non-dissemination equivalent to what the court previously did in an underlying criminal case until that process plays itself out. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. James. I'm going to just switch back to Mr. Jones to see Mr. Jones before I hear lastly from Ms. Kennedy as a reply. But Mr. Jones, given what Mr. James has brought up here, do you, no obligation here, but do you wish to add anything further on your argument at this point in time?
Only that we would join in Mr. James's arguments related to the petition for post-conviction relief.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right. Ms. Kennedy, reply.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have 2 points I'd like to address and reply. The first is on the broadness or the narrowness of the request, however you want to see it. But Idaho Code 74-1029 does allow for the parties to have a dialogue about records are being requested and to get more information about those records and to narrow the request. And that's exactly what happened here. And by the time they got to the August 28th request and the September 15th denial, it was very clear what records were at issue. And what records were available and what had been denied by the city and why. And when we originally filed this case, it was very clear that the denials were based on custodianship, foreign law, and privacy. And so regardless of what documents were or weren't at issue, the exemptions that we were dealing with were very clear. The city made that very clear in their denials. And so I don't think that the city can say that we were prejudiced or we didn't understand what the issues were. Even if the particular documents at issue were fuzzy, we were very clear by the time of filing what the exemptions at issue were. But again, the statute does allow the parties to have a dialogue and then to come to a resolution. And if you look at the September 15th denial, it's very clear what EWU was requesting and what the city was denying, and why. And then my second point, related to the post-conviction relief. I mean, I'm coming into this a little bit cold. I have not seen any briefing on this issue. And so I would object to the court considering that when we haven't had a chance to research or brief any of those issues. But I think we have to go back to the statute and the case law. Wade v. Taylor says that the justification for the denial is assessed at the time of the denial. We didn't have this post-conviction issue at the time of the denial. That wasn't out there. But importantly, in Wade v. Taylor, there's no categorical denial of investigatory records. You don't get to just say, well, the case is open again, therefore you get nothing. The city has to show a reasonable probability of harm for every single record. And at this point, they've already released a lot of records in this case, and we can't pull back all of the records that have already been released. And so they would have to show, the city and the interveners would have to show that, well, for each of these records in Appendix A, that there's a reasonable probability of harm. And I suppose the harm that they're raising is fair trial. So they would have to show, well, you can't have that record because it might prejudice the right to a fair trial. But we have to also look at reasonable probability of harm. Is there a reasonable probability that the petition would be granted, such that there would be a trial? And so I think the court would have to look at that. And the interveners, I don't believe, have standing to protect the defendant's right to a fair trial. I think that would be something that the city or the defense team would have to. So with those two issues, unless the court has questions, those are my comments on reply. Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you. I appreciate council, your briefing in this regard, and also providing the records logs provided by the city and the most recent addendum. That just helps for the court clarify, given the volume of records that clearly was cited to in the declarations and the amount of information. It helps the court to narrow down what we're actually discussing or deciding in this particular case. The briefing was very thorough and helpful for the court. Even if we have kind of limited case law on certain things, it's still helpful for the court in guiding it into hopefully getting to a decision. And I appreciate your professionalism and your arguments here before the court. We will take the matter under advisement and issue a decision. Is there anything else in this matter for today, Ms. Kennedy?
No, thank you, Your Honor. We appreciate your time on this case.
Anything further, Mr. Jones?
No, thank you, Judge.
Or Mr. James?
No, thank you, Your Honor, for your close attention to the matter.
Yes. All right, thank you. We will be in recess for today.
Okay, folks, so that's it for the court hearing. I knew it, that she was going to take it under advisement. I knew it. It's very clear to me that, honestly, it is just a big BS type of stuff happening. It never fails to impress me that the YouTubers that cover these cases are all linked together with other people that are so suspicious out there. They band together in these little groups. They tag each other. They talk about each other. And when these cases start happening, it's like they work together. I don't work with anyone. I am 100% non-agency, independent, and honestly, I will say that there's something so suspicious, not only about this case, because EWU can't get some audio that they requested. I've not been able to get anything from Moscow. Nothing. The only FOIAs that I have been able to get are directly from the ISP, directly from the sheriff's office, nothing from Moscow City Police Department. And I have said this over and over again. So who are these other creators that are given these requests and answered very quickly into tons of audio, tons of video? Who are these people? I've always wondered. And I followed Chronicles of Olivia. I followed a lot of people she was connected to. And obviously, this case is connected to those people yet once again. If you scroll around, troll around, however have you, it is very clear to me there are a lot of people involved in this case, just like other cases, if you go back and look. It's very odd to me that Moscow is saying, no, we cannot answer EWU, but look at all the people that they've got this information from. Look at the actual creators that are posting day to day audios and videos and information. Think about that. And now you have a creator saying, yes, I've been in contact with a family member. And all of a sudden, they're on the attack of people who are really breaking this case down, really breaking down the experts' information, etc., and sharing factual documents backed up with all the media that they have released to certain individuals. But you have fair use. I can use other people's videos to prove my point, to link it to documents. But EWU can't get a simple FOIA for this. I'm going to show you. They can't get a simple FOIA for this. When Moscow says it is on our repository, we have the, let me just put it up on the screen so you guys can see it. We have the documents, but we're not going to share them with you, kind of thing. Okay? This is the actual document. I believe there's a whole list of documents, but this is one of them that says evidence, video, audio, and transcript of interview added to the case file. I've asked for this myself. Nothing. I've asked for audio and video of that other people have asked for. Okay? There are people out there calling me a liar, that I'm not talking with anybody that knows BK, that I'm not talking with the family. I've never disclosed who my contact is, ever. Because do you think his family would be telling the truth? I mean, they threw him under the fucking bus, guys. They contacted the police about him. His sister interviewed with the prosecution. People, wake the hell up. Over a stolen phone. Over a stolen phone. Think about the people in his family that turned him in. Do you think that he is going to tell his family everything? Do you tell your family everything? Do you hold some things back because you feel like you're the black sheep of the family and perhaps your family is going to throw you under the bus? Think about this, folks. Not everybody is always honest with their own family, but people can be honest with the total stranger. Isn't that odd how that works? I'm just hypothetically explaining something to you that everybody needs to know in this case. If he wants to communicate with someone other than his family, that he may trust more than his own family, then think about the creator's integrity, background, information. Are they sharing factual information? Or are they just making shit up and talking bad about other people? Think about that. I have given everyone the benefit of the doubt in this case, even the G family. Do I think they're sus? Sure, I have my own opinion, but I'm not going out there bashing them. Do I think some of the things they're going to do hurts their case with WSU? Absolutely. Because when I went through my own case, my attorney was very clear. Do not speak to the media. Do not talk with channels. Do not speak to anyone. Do not contact anyone. And you know what? I listened. And I think that's why 100% my case was full of integrity and I won. Now let's think about this. Let's think about this for a minute. They're going to call you names. They're going to try to discredit you. They're going to say whatever they want about you because they know you're the real deal. Remember what I said about trying and failure. Remember the video that I shared with you about encouragement. I can make a fake email. You want me to go out there and show you how easy it is to make a fake email address? Do you want me to show you? I mean, hello. I want to see the pudding in the proof. I want to see the proof in the pudding. I want to see somebody of the family come on one of these channels, like the media, like other families have come on channels. I want to see them come on a channel and say, I 100% back this creator because X, Y, and Z. I want to see that happen on any of these rag channels, which I call them. Because they're not talking about the professionals. They're not talking about the opinions that went into the court records. They're not talking about anything like that. And that is basically what EWU is saying. You have all these creators out there that are getting these audios and videos of stuff that looks like AI. And that's exactly what the attorney just said. Stuff that looks like AI. They're trying to make money off of it. And that's exactly what they said. Okay. Now, I will say this. There is a lot of stuff in the files that could make Koberger look bad. And I get it. I get it. Because Mallory did his research. Mallory did his job. And there's probably some things that Koberger would say, I'm ashamed of that they found in my phone. I'm ashamed of some of the stuff. And now they're going to put me on full blast to the whole United States, whole national, across the world. Excuse me, I got hiccups. Across the world. And you know, honestly, you see my chat, you see the people that come here, you see the people that are looking for truth. And I don't have a little night bot that says, and begging for money, send me something at my Cash App, send me something at my Venmo. Make sure that you give me money to support my work in the channel. That is, to me, unethical. And that's my humble opinion. It's gross. I think it's really gross. It's like trolling or panhandling on the internet. Now, I know people who respect my work because they know I'm the real deal. And honestly, they can go out there and they can talk all kinds of shit about me. Go for it. If that's going to get you another like and view of somebody that will never be in my camp, go for it. See, I don't play well with others because I cut through the bullshit. All right. Now, I'm just saying, I've got a question. Let me see what you're saying. I've got a question. If BK is exonerated, who pays BK back for that $23K he paid out to the families? What $23K did he pay out to the families? I've never seen restitution. What $23K did he pay out to the families? I've never seen that. If you show me, I'll dig into that. Because you know what? I just saw something the other day that blew my mind. And I'm going to share it with you since you brought this up. It blew my mind. And I thought, how dare them talk about Koberger's mother this way? It blew my mind. And let me grab it for you because I was going to talk about it the other day. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see how this falls out. They were basically saying that mommy paid, mommy bankrolled right? Koberger's whatever. And where is it at? Here it is. Mommy bankrolling his prison account. I am so floored about this. Let me share this. I was so floored.
Brian Koberger is behind bars for life, but he's hoping to change that. Does he have a shot?
Boy, does he have an uphill climb. It would be like me trying to climb Mount Everest the first time without ropes and oxygen.
And guess what? Koberger has people rallying behind him, and they're sending him cash. I'll tell you the name of his biggest benefactor. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Brian Koberger is serving 4 life sentences, and you might think after standing up in open court and raising his right hand and swearing to tell the truth and admitting that he murdered 4 University of Idaho students that he would go to prison and you'd never hear from him again. That was the hope of the families of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. But that's not what's happening. Brian Koberger has made it clear that he's not going away, at least not quietly. Many people across the country believe that Brian Koberger is guilty. He said that he was guilty. But now Koberger, more than a year after he was sentenced to 4 life terms plus 10 years for burglary, has filed a petition for post-conviction relief with the Ada County courts. Koberger says he was coerced into confessing and false promises were made to him by his legal team. He claims he wasn't told about exculpatory evidence. A claim has come to light that Ethan Chapin had unknown hairs in his hand, but whether that material was actually hair is in dispute. Koberger says that his lawyers told him he would most certainly get the death penalty and that the conditions on death row were poor. Koberger wrote, a gross misrepresentation of and promises regarding what a life sentence would immediately afford petitioner, gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate story of counsel's horrific experience touring an actual 8x8 death row cell, all communicated to petitioner and his family, allegedly by IDOC through counsel, thus constituting threats and promises made to induce a plea agreement. Brian Koberger arrived at Idaho's maximum security institution on the same day he was sentenced, July 23rd, 2025. He's been there ever since. He's inmate number 163214. He spends his days 23 hours a day in his cell alone. He's filed grievances claiming fellow inmates are harassing him. And since he arrived, he's had a number of people sending him money. His biggest contributor, his mother, Mary Ann Koberger. Koberger has asked to proceed with his post-conviction petition on a partial payment plan. He attached his financial records from prison to the petition. Those records show 6 people deposited money into his Keefe commissary account within a week of him arriving at prison. Koberger's mother made the largest deposit, $300. In fact, Koberger's mom has deposited money consistently. During his first month in prison, she deposited $700 into his account. Since his incarceration, Brian Koberger's mother has deposited more than $9,200 into his commissary account. Now, is that a lot of money? It sure sounds like it to me, but we'll get to more on that shortly. The rest of the deposits came from his supporters. The total deposited into Brian Koberger's account over the last year, $10,812. The expenses totaled $10,635.10.
And who gives a flying rat's ass if people donated? If people like me, and yes, I did donate, if people like me donate for injustice, for them to get the relief or whatever they need. I mean, we're talking about a PhD student that was making bank in his position of a TA job. It's not like he didn't have any money, folks. And maybe his mom took money from his own personal savings account and put it in his commissary. That doesn't mean mommy's bankrolling. Are they shocked that he has supporters? Are they shocked that we believe in due process in our laws?
His balance earlier this month was $177.03. Now, that may not include the 20% the state takes for restitution for the victims. So what can Kohberger buy? The prison.
And what is the current restitution? There is no credit on restitution. As of today, you can go right over to the website. You can go look at the current restitution right here. Let me just pop this up here. Right here, do the case summary. It'll bring this up and you can go right down and it says how much he's paid in restitution. And it says total payments and credit, he owes $306,000. $470.36. And that was a 7-9. Okay. Anybody can go there and verify and fact check. Okay. Anybody can. And we have the free will in America and the right to spend our money the way we want. Does anybody have to tell you what you should spend it on? No. Abso-freaking-lutely not. So here we go. Let's see what she's got to say now.
Website states residents housed in Idaho Department of Correction prisons and community work centers may purchase supplemental hygiene products, food, electronics, and clothing through the prison commissary. Commissary goods are provided through a contract with Keep Commissary Network. Each facility has the ability to customize their commissary menu to meet the needs of their custody level. Residents may order products weekly using their accounts. Orders are delivered weekly in each facility. So you might be asking yourself, what does Keefe Commissary offer? Which products? The Keefe Group's website shows it offers a number of products, including skin and hair care products, vitamins, deodorants, toothpaste, and supplements. There are clothing options too, such as jeans, shirts, shorts, sweats, underwear, shoes, and boots. And then televisions, typewriters, CD players, portable radios, headphones, and fans. Snacks are also available.
Oh, he's buying snacks.
So to dig into these records about Brian Kohberger's prison finances, I want to bring in Dr. Dwayne Hendricks. He is a former federal prison warden, so he can look at this stuff with me and really break it down for us. Dr. Hendricks, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Angela. Always be to be with you.
Yeah, you too. Let's talk a little bit about this. I was shocked when I saw the amount of money that has been deposited into Brian Kohberger's commissary account since his incarceration. It's over $10,000 now, and that's the first year. And then he's spent most of it. I mean, he's only got $177 left, according to the records we're seeing. Is that amount of money, over $10,000, is that a lot of money?
Is that he's spending the money talking to his parents? Is that what it is? Oh my God. Sue me if I talk to my parents while I'm in jail while being framed for something I didn't do and all the documents are coming out. They have to have some type of connection with the outside world, whether they choose to talk with their family or choose to talk with trusted sources. Now, I've been digging hard and fast into these documents. I think I'm the only creator out there that has read the documents, listened to every single hearing, have cataloged in an Excel spreadsheet everything about this case. And I could back it up with receipts from here to Sunday and twice and maybe 3 times on Sunday, right? And you have to think about what in the world are they talking about? He spent money talking to the family. So he's basically supporting their system that they've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for these inmates to go and talk to their family. And they're complaining about him spending the money back into the system. Oh my God.
To be deposited into one of these accounts within 1 year.
Yes and no. And again, it depends on the inmate, their financial situation prior to their incarceration, and also the family and friends and those supporters who are behind the individual that is behind the fence. So I can tell you the average in the federal system, the average amount of money that inmates may have would be less than $500 at any given time. And that would even include the amount of money that they would make working at the facility. And most inmates.
That is so not true, because Gypsy Rose Blanchard, in her case, y'all, she had a lot of money on the books. You could FOIA it and try to figure out and see if they would answer you honestly. I'm going to do that. I'm going to FOIA the Department of Corrections, and I'm going to FOIA and I'm going to ask for everything on his commissary, every donation.
Probably make, 30, 40 cents an hour, depending on the type of work that they're doing. So the $10,000 deposit for this particular inmate it's pretty high because typically, like I said, most inmates, carry about, $500 in their account at any given time. And the reason why inmates try not to have a lot of money in their account is because if they have high fines and restitution and court costs that they have to pay, because the more money you have in your account, the more money that's going to come back out to go towards those fines and restitution costs.
And the state does take a cut out of his commissary for restitution.
Yes. It should be around 20 to 25%, I believe, is their policy. And typically inmates will work out a payment plan with their counselor or case manager to ensure that those funds are coming out at any given time. Because I can tell you, inmates would get really upset if they did get, let's just say, a high lump sum on their account. And then they would come back and say, hey, man, somebody sent me, $2,000. Why did y'all take, $200, $400 out of my account? It's because, hey, you're set on a payment plan. And when these funds come in, they come out.
So the math on 10,000, 20% of 10,000.
Right. $200, yeah.
Yeah, $200.
What? Wait a minute. Now, I'm not the most expert math person, but the last time, when it comes to money, when the last time I checked, 20% of 10,000 is $2,000, not $200. So if any restitution has been paid, it would be on the repository. It would be updated. You guys all know how to get there. I've shared this link before. I'll drop it again right here so everyone has it. This is the court repository and you can see clearly, folks, case summary. It'll take you directly to the link it'll open, and payments and credits, 0. 0 on the repository. And this should be taken off of his commissary, whatever's been donated, and credited here. Credited here. I know math is hard, guys, but come on. You should see some total credits. This is on his account summary. This is the whole case summary, all 57 pages. Page 57 of 57. And you don't see anything here. Maybe they're keeping a different ledger. I don't know. But if you want, you can go back and see the case that you guys are talking about on the repository I just showed you. If you go back, let me see if I can get back to yes, here it is. If you go right back to their website, you can see the order for amended restitution. Remember, they went back and they basically said, no, you're going to pay for the earns and yada, yada, yada. And the last court date they said, that was that he had to pay the amended restitution, and that the judgment rate is 9.25% per year. That is a judgment rate for Idaho. So if someone owes you $100,000, every year they can charge you 9.125% interest that they have not paid. So if you owe a big judgment, you definitely want to pay on that judgment soon. So let's get back to this interview because I'm very interested to see what else they say. I did not watch this whole interview. So stick with us, hang around, and let's see what they said.
So, when we do that math, I would assume that this 10,000 not taking that into account.
Right, exactly. And looking at the records, it doesn't exactly show, where he is right now with those court costs and fines that he has to pay. And additionally, I did see the petition where he's saying that he doesn't have the fund in order to pay, because now he's only down $177 in his commissary account.
This doesn't even include whatever is being spent on phone calls and video visits too. So there may be even more money being donated toward that. And it's not just mom donating. It's not just mother. And I call her mother because that's how he had her saved in his phone, mother and father. They were the central figures in his life. But there are other people donating, contributing to his commissary.
Yeah, and because of the high profile nature of this case, and I know sometimes we find it a little difficult to believe that, especially someone who's been convicted of murdering 4 college students in a very heinous and violent way, that he would garner such attention that other people, other than people that his family and friends or close associates prior to this case, that would actually be contributing to his funds. That happens, obviously. And then, and I believe that the Idaho Department of Corrections also monitors who's providing funds in the individual inmates' accounts, because sometimes other inmates' families and friends will will put money on other inmates' accounts when there's debts to be collected, whether it's gambling or some other extortion type of activities. So I'm sure they're monitoring who these people are. Are they just fans? Are they just giving him money, or are they giving other inmates money? Because they can use that intelligence to try to figure out, is there something nefarious related to these funds coming in to inmates, especially if they're funding other inmates' accounts in the facility.
And the last we knew, he was being kept in his cell 23 hours a day because, you know, there are people who probably want to harm him.
Right.
And so he gets like an hour, I think, out in the yard, you know, each day if he wants it.
Right.
And then he has to be escorted to that area. So we don't know how much he's mingling with other inmates, if he's made any connections in there, or if he's just like he was in the Latah County Jail, hanging out on video calls with his mom all day.
It's probably a little bit of both or a mixture of all those things.
Wait a minute here. I just have to stop because this is freaking breaking news, in my opinion. This is freaking wild. I'm on this live stream. I'm looking at a message that just came through, folks. And I can't make this up. I'm going to show you this real quick. Remember, we just watched EWU versus City of Moscow with Judge Megan Marshall, taking the case under advisement. She's going to go and check case law. She's going to verify. She's going to vet what these guys have said in court on record, and she's going to do her due diligence. And then she's going to make a ruling, because typically they'll go back and talk to a few, attorneys, judges, retired judges, make sure they're not going to step over any toes or case law or anything like that. And basically rule in whatever way that she seems possible that will stand up to the Idaho Supreme Court, right? That's what happens. This is what happens. Okay? Now, I will say this. Kirsty, that's how you say her name, Kennedy, is a partner. Is she currently a partner at the person who sent this to me? At Givens Pursley, the same law firm where Hippler worked and that is connected to a lot of these LLCs on King Street, folks. Are we really asking the right questions here? Are we? How is EWU not getting exactly what they ask for when a lot of these creators out there have received information easily? I am going to go directly to their website, and I'm going to verify, and I'm going to vet that she is on their roll call, that she is at. Let's just see. Let me just see if I can find her. Let me see. Hold on. Let me just see that again one more time. Yeah, it is Kennedy. Is she related to the Kennedys? Yep, there she is. There she is in black and white. Prior to joining Givens Pursley, Christie was an associate with Stoll Rives LLP. Before that, she was a staff attorney with Idaho Legal Aid Services. I thought she looked familiar. At the Nampa Justice Center, where she represented domestic violence victims in family law matters. I think I've actually talked to her. Her hair is naturally brown. Oh my God. During law school, she was an intern with Cato's Institute Center for Constitutional Studies for an Honorable Alan G. Lance at the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veteran Claims. You can't make this up. You can't make this up, folks. I'm going to look back at some paperwork. I think I've actually had some interaction with her. Best Lawyers in America, one to watch for bankruptcy in 2021-23. Tribute to Women in the Industry, 2018. Pro Bono Award, 2015. University of Washington School of Law, 2012. Boise State University, Anthropology, Top 10 Scholar. Idaho, U.S. District Court of Idaho, Learning Lab. I know what that is. I know exactly what that is. Y'all, I can't make this up. Gosh, look at all her history. Right here, you guys can go right to this link I'll provide for you. Verify it. Full transparency, guys. Full. No redactions, no hiding, full transparency. She is representing. Oh my goodness. She is arguing state law. She is arguing FOIA law. I keep wanting to see the outcomes, but now since seeing this, they may be pushing the same BS narrative. They got to cover it all. If you start at the base, you got to cover all your bases. Uh-oh. Wow. Wow. And if you doubt me on the LLCs, go to Idaho SOS Secretary of State website. Okay. And you can go and do a business search, and I'll walk you right through it so you guys know how to do it on your own. Here is business search link. And you just go by King LLC. And let's just see if anything is listed under King LLC. Contains. Search. Look at all of these businesses. Most of them have no agents now. Most of them have no agents. 118 King LLC, inactive, revoked, no agent. Let's see what the latest one is. 126 East King Street Holdings. Existing 3 Kings and Queens LLC, 205 King Street, King's Construction. Wow. Well. Remember, I have all the receipts from this case when it first started, just doing some research in the background. It never made sense why they called it King Street if they lived on Queen. The door faced Queen. All those houses in the apartments faced Queen. It was labeled Queen Street. Even the cop says you moan the one on over here on Queen Street. Okay, so you can go and you can look at all the kings, and you can even go contains 1122. And let's see. Inactive, revoked. It was out of Colorado, this business. That's where the agent was listed, and it's no longer used. 2014 was the AR due. No registration. But you can go to 1127 King LLC and see who, inactive, no agent, a different address. How about 1112 King? Well, nothing's there. Let's go 1106. You can name them all. You can keep looking too. So now we know, let's say 500. Let's see if there's any LLC for 500. Nope. Okay, so you can go there and you can look. You can definitely go and look. A foreign limited liability company. Inactive, revoked. 2010 was the very first filing date. 24, inactive filing date. Let's view the history. I'm a little nosy here. Let's just look at the history. Let's see when it changed. Let's see what was filed for 22. Annual report, Dan Etsy. This was the report filed 2/4 of 22, filed at midnight. And we can actually just look at that. We can open the file and we can verify. This is how you vet and verify, folks. Registered agent was Team Idaho Real Estate. That's the physical address. Dan Etsy was known as the manager at the time. Colorado, and the status. Very, very interesting state of Idaho. Very interesting. And let's see, it changed to, Givens Pursley Corporate Services LLC. It was changed 12/9/2022. And let's go look at that document of change, because this is what it says. Registered agent was Team Idaho Real Estate. Registered agent as of 12/9/22, Givens Pursley Corporate Services LLC of Boise. Franklin G. Lee. Very interesting. This is the law firm, folks. I don't play games. I dig. I research. I bring you the facts and the truth. Believe me or not, it's up to you. Replay or not, it's up to you. Kind of looking like a wild goose chase, in my opinion. What are they afraid of? Being found out or an alleged cover-up? What do y'all think? Drop your thoughts below. And let's just say, let me look at this one. Inactive revoked on 4/14/24. Very, very interesting. Remember, we're going to bring you all the facts. We're going to bring you all the details. So they're running a business out of that house. Correct? My mom has a business at a piece. Well, think about this. Think about this. The business itself was who owned the house. They rented it out. It was a business. Okay? It was a factual business. They are renting it out. The owner pays the mortgage. They rent it out to students. All those houses around campus, guys, all those houses are businesses. This is how the wealthy buy multiple homes, and then they break them up into little apartments, and per the county laws and occupancy, and they go and they get their little certificates, and then they can rent out 6 rooms to 12 different people. Think about how you run a business, folks. It's very easy. Coming from a background in business as a businesswoman, this is very simple. Okay? And you can even go in this database and you can search contains a last name. Contains a last name. And you can see all the business agent. You can see everything. Articles of amendments. You can go and see who owns this business. You can see who's on the business, director names, etc. Christy's name is all over this business. Tracy is all over this business. Olivia is all over this business. There is no name listed for even an officer under Steve. Okay? This is a business owned by Christy in her name. Not Steve. Not Steve. They're stating it is a nonprofit business. And the purpose of this organization is to promote community well-being through direct charitable activities assisting individuals, families, and local organizations in need. That is how they coded this business that they're touting. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? They paid a $30 filing fee in starting the Kaylee Gonzalez Foundation. Interesting. Interesting stuff. And you can go back and look at the history of anything that has ever been in their name. Initial filing was right after they got their death certificates. Let's look at this. Kaylee Jade Waiting in Paradise Foundation. Is that another one? Has voting members, not profit. The foundation and organized and operated exclusively for charitable purposes of the Internal Revenue Code to promote well-being through direct charitable activities assisting individuals, families, and local organizations in need. Mailing address is out of New York. Florida, New York. What is F.L. Drohan? Is that the person? Registered agents, Boise. 1002. Let me just look up 10020. What was the address again? 11020 West Fairview Avenue. I'm going to look up where that is. I have a feeling where it is. Remember, I used to live in Boise, folks. Let's see whose address this is. 1120. One 1020. It doesn't give me an actual address, does it? Suite 104. Suite 104. Let's find out. Suite 104. Currently joined with Suite 104, can be sold individually. Who's in Suite 104? 1100 Suite 104. CT Corporate System. Is that right? A global IT partner? What? Hold on a second. Suite 104. Holy shit. What did we stumble upon? Live dig. CT Corporation System. Legal services in Boise. Corporate services, property services, lien services. Synergy Corporate Services will be moving to their new offices starting May 27th, 2025. Synergy.us. What in the world is going on? 104. CT Corporate System. What do we do? They must have had this person help them with this establishment of the business. But its mailing addresses in New York. J.W. Lee. J-A-E-W. Lee. Let's find out who that is. New York. J.W. Lee, photographer. What? What? Wait a minute here. A photographer in New York. J.W. Lee. Commercial photographer, art direction at jwlee.com. Business owner, head photographer at dear1.us. Real estate agent. Business owner. Licensed real estate agent. Fashion photography. What the frick? What is all this? Dear One, let me go look and see what this company is. Holy frickin' moly. Dear One, editorial and lifestyle photographers. Dear One, New York, destinations, engagement, party, family. What the heck? We capture your most moments on your special day. What is this? What the hell are we looking at? What? Self-employed, Greater New York, fashion commercial photographer. Licensed agent. Melogram, San Francisco Bay Area. There's the California connection. Hold on. I'm going to go and look and see what this is. Hold on. Hold your horses, guys. Melogram.com. Sound reactive music visualization for That can't be. San Francisco. Hold on. Let me just share this with you. San Francisco. Mellogram Inc. Holy shit. Is a stock corporation, California, general organized under the laws of California. The business was filed in 2010 and is currently listed as suspended FTB SOS with the California State Secretary. Official file on this entity is a category of photography stores and services. It's located in San Francisco. Wan Wu Lee is the sole principal on record and serves as chief CEO associated with yada, yada, yada. Mellogram. Henry S. Chang. Why do these names sound so familiar? Why do these names sound familiar? Hold on. Let me go to my other repository. Hold on one second. These names sound so familiar. Mellogram. Music, publishing, songwriter, consulting. Out of Korea? K-pop? What in the hell is all this? What in the world is going on? J.W. Lee. J.W. Lee. Why does this name sound familiar? Hold on a minute. I'm going to look up in the court repository. J.W. Lee, New York. What in the hey is going on? Does somebody want to arrest records? Let me just see this. J.W. Lee, 46. New York. Funny, they just went to New York the other day doing a whole media tour. J.W. Lee. I mean, there's probably a lot of people with this name. Okay? I'm just saying, we could have the wrong person. We could have the right person. Don't know. There's another guy who went to Yale that's investment banking. It doesn't say the exact address that this guy's located at, but when I look up the address on the file of the filing, it says 28th West 30th Street, number 10, floor, Drohan, New York. That's in black and white, guys. So y'all can go down this rabbit hole. Y'all can do some digging. I've done some digging. It screams out something's not right here, but it's all good. It's all good. I just showed you how to get to the bottom of things, how to do some research, where to start. You guys can go down these rabbit holes, make your videos, do whatever you got to do. Something is not right. Something has not been right in this case. And there are people who are too afraid to speak out. We've just seen a court hearing take place. We've seen a lot of crazy things happening. And, wow, you have to question almost anything and everything. There is very little transparency in this case. And it takes somebody to go dig and find the truth in this case. And this connection is clearly right in our faces. Right in our faces. So originally, this was coded in the business as the Kaylee Jade Waiting in Paradise Foundation. And they changed the name to something else shortly after. And here is the official document, proof receipt of that one. And I'm just really curious. Let me just see this. An articles amendment in November of 25. I want to see what this was. General nonprofit amendment does not require member approval. And this was registered in Charlotte. They crossed out. Oh, this is interesting. Wow. I'm going to share this one with you before we go. I've got a video I got to put out too. Hold on a second. I got something else I got to get done. Let me take this one down. This had Olivia Gonzalez Stevenson as the director, and they deleted her from this and then listed an address in Idaho, and they changed her name to Olivia Gonzalez. Did she get divorced? Is she living back in Idaho? What in the world is going on with this company? Let me go and see what the amendment, the initial filing was filed for. The initial filing was for, yeah, it was. It was, the initial filing was Gonzalez Stevenson. They crossed it out, changed her name back to the other one I just showed you instead. This is the one they crossed out and changed. And that was 11/12/25. But you don't see her talking. Now you see the other daughter. And just in May, they did an articles of amendment. And it was filed. Number of directors is 2. Number of directors that voted for the amendment of 2. The corporation does not have voting members, but they voted for the amendment. I do not want to change the name of the corporation. She left it as Gonzalez. And that was the last filing that was changed in the repository. So anytime you want to see an Idaho business, you go directly there. And let me just share this with you guys so you have the link. You guys can go do some homework, some research. Get out there. I encourage everyone to start sharing what they find. Start sharing the truth. Start your own channel. Go out there. The only fear is failing. And if you fail, don't quit. You'll find success. We need more truth tellers out there, folks. Anybody else you want me to look for while we're here? Let's see. Mogan. Nope, nothing under Mogan. Let me see if I can do registered agents. That would be easier. Kevin Chapin, Burst Chapin, Ron, Bryce, Sherry, Timothy, Mary, Emily, Sean. Nope, no Chapins. Let me do it by name as the registered agent. Nope. Let me see another one. You can search all kinds of different ways. Steve Gonzalez, Cloud 7 VIPs, non-commercial, perpetual, general business. Let me see what it was. Initial filing was 2014. Let's see what this was. Cloud 7 VIPs Inc. Marcia Shia. She is in Houston. I already did some research on them. That is the one who owned some trucking company. Y'all can go down that rabbit hole on your own if you want to. I've already shown all this. Cloud 7, Rathrum, director. Maybe it had something to do with IT, trucking, something. Let me see what this is too. This is Christy was the president. Steve was the director. That was in 2016. Remember, allegedly, Christy said she was a teacher. Steve said she was a teacher. I never found any teaching certificate on file or registered. This was in 2017. Christy was signed over to be the president at the time. And then it dissolved in 2019. Inactive, dissolved, good standing. That's the only other company they had in their name. And if we go back, you can go ahead and see any type of Nelson B. Goncalves. I don't know who that is. Rigby, Idaho. It still looks like it's an active business. I don't know if it's any relation. Maybe it just has the same last name. Nelson B. Gonzalez and Rigby. Rebecca Nelson. Jurisdiction, professional. Jurisdiction, California. Professional. What is that? Sepsis expert proof. What is it? Professional scripts and expert proofreaders. I don't know what that is. I can't read the name. I can't read the writing. Let me go and look at the other filing for report. Change from B to Rigby. This is the other one in good standing, president. And it doesn't say what it actually... Professional scop... What is that? SCOPI. I don't even know what that is. Let me look it up. SCOPIST. What is a scopist? A professional who edits and formats court reporters' rough transcripts, inaccurate, polished legal documents. That is what this means. I had no idea that's what it was called. I know that there's people that do third party. They're their own transcriptionist and they're certified by the courts. I know that for sure. And they charge a fortune. But a scopist is a professional who edits and formats court reports, rough transcripts into accurate, polished legal documents. What? What? Who is Nelson B. Gonzalez? Woo, we are way live dig. Nelson P. Gonzalez. He was in Temecula, California. He was a real estate agent. How is this even possible? And now he's a court reporter? They do transcripts? What? Wow. Are they related? I don't know. I can't even make that speculation. That's a far leap, but it just happens to be the same last name, male, surname. This is weird. Corporation Wiki says that they have a business, Temecula, California, that's registered in Rigby, Idaho. And he had a realty company. You can't see that because I'm not sharing the right one. Hold on. He had a professional real estate company. He's the president of a real estate company. It's one thing they all have in common. Real estate, business. He's associated with 2 companies from public record over the last 5 years. They're still active. Company is Rebno Realty out of California, 12 years old. Articles of incorporation, active. That's the state of California. And it's registered in Idaho. That is really odd. Out of Idaho, Rigby, Idaho. Wow. All right, guys. Oh, 'twas the night before the unalivings, right? Everything that happened before. Everything that happened before. Wow. Says it's still active. Still active. Changed from. Still active. Open the file, and this is what we get. Bam. Registered agent, president, Rebecca Felice Gonzalez. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to run. I'll see you back at 3 p.m. I have a whole stream planned for us. And if you guys got anything for me, feel free to send it my way. Tag me. And yes, I'm going to go out with this. I just got another screenshot from someone's live, and I'm going to address this, and then we're going to go. Okay? I have to address this. If I don't twist my words. Read and understand I'm not in your business. Don't be in mine. But if you're going to be in mine, make sure you get it right. Okay? Go look at the community page on Jules' channel. Anybody who writes anything about another creator will be deleted here. You will be deleted. I'm not going to block you. God knows I want you to be able to have content because you can't make your own. But I'm just saying, stop with the petty BS. I'm not going to fall for it. Believe me, I called you a few choice words last night and you deserve it because you've been a see you next Tuesday to a lot of people out on the internet. Stop spamming my post. Stop coming to my channel with your bullshit. You afraid I'm going to expose you? Is that why you keep chatting and rubbing your mouth together and your lips keep moving? Huh. You're afraid we're going to find out. Nobody is talking about a GoFundMe. Thank you. And I've seen all the comments of you guys. You got my back. I know you do. I appreciate it. But you know what? One thing I won't do is back down to a bully. Because if you're doing something illegal, if you're doing something involved with others, I'm going to figure it out. Is that what they're worried about? All these online creators that spew bullshit and make up stories and can't stick to the facts? There is a way to ethically report if you haven't realized that yet. Maybe stick around and you'll learn something. Y'all have a great night. Thank you to my mods. Y'all are beautiful. Love and support every single one of you. Let's be the truth movement in the true crime community. Maybe we can make a difference. Maybe that's what our true calling is. Be well.
And it's up to the state to bring evidence and a jury to decide if that's different.
Essentially convicted in the media. You don't have to read but a few articles to see how negative they are about him. He has a right to have this information withheld, brought out in public, so that people can see it's not this neat little package. So people can start to wonder if Brian's innocent. Your Honor, Brian is innocent.
They call it the August effect. A quiet pull, a heart's compass, finding its gravitation. A promise whispered to the future. Sunrise.
All right, I made a mistake. Caleb, drop a 1 if you're still in the house. Drop a 1. Sorry, I had to stop that. I got to keep going. Okay, so drop a 1 if you're still here. Drop a 1. I forgot to do the giveaway for the comments when I was on vacation. So do me a favor. Caleb, are you in the stream? He's reminded me 3 times to do the drawing. This is for the $50 Amazon gift card for the month of July for our members or anyone who left a top comment. Drop a 1 in the chat. Drop a 1. Okay, you're there. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I've got 97 comments that were in this drawing. And I need you to pick a number between 1 and 97, all at random. I don't have a random generator, but I've got it all down in my log. So I need you to pick a number between 1 and 96 for the top loved, commented, saved comments. So I need you to pick a number from 1 to 96. 1 to 96. Pick a number between 1 and 96. Come on, y'all. If not, Dina, you get to pick a number between 1 and 96. 1 and 96. Yes, Phoenix, he's in the chat. I thought so. Drop a number between 1 and 96. 53. I was thinking 57. So let me look at my book and see who 53 is. 53 is 51, 52, 53. No talkie before coffee. She's actually in the stream right here. Congratulations. Reach out to me, phoenixinvestigates.proton.me. And I'll get you that $50 gift card right over to you. Just email me your email address and it'll come all electronic in your inbox. 53. 53. No talkie before coffee. Congratulations. Whoop. It's your lucky day. You get to go and do a little bit of shopping. All right. So congratulations. If you're still in the chat, no talkie before coffee. Let me see if I can tag her. Can anyone tag her? It won't let me tag her. I'm in the stream. So if you can tag her and let her know that she won, congratulations. Everyone congratulate her. Regular OG in the house. I just had her up here. No talkie before coffee. All right. Congratulations, sweetheart. Just email me and I'll get you that gift card and you can be on your way spending away. All right. Everyone have a great afternoon. I'll see you later. Be well.
Paints the window pane a hazy gold. A story in my chest that's waiting to unfold. Used to trace the lines of maps I'd never seen. Now the greenest pasture grows from deep within. Letting go of every anchor, every chain. Washing off the dust in cool September rain. This is the freedom, wild and new. The future calling, breaking through. A heart's true north, the sky of blue. This is the promise coming true. The road ahead is unwritten, vast and wide. No need to run, no reason left to hide. Every step a choice, every breath my own. On this open field of chances I have sown. This is the freedom, wild and new. The future calling, breaking through. A heart's true north, a sky of blue. This is a prominent truth. The August effect, I understand it now. It's the faith you find somehow. The promise coming true for you. The greenest pasture.